What up, everybody? I am Wade. Welcome to Animation Study Buddies. I am here with my animation study buddy, Wayne Carlisi from One on One Animation. So today we're looking at a clip from Buccaneer Bunny, looking explicitly at multiples and blurs and what's the history, where'd they come from, and how do you use them?
Here's the part that really intrigued me right in here.
Those multiples?
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, like that's what caught my eye immediately too.
I mean, they use some lines there, but man, talk about
Yeah.
That's interesting. I was always taught that you go from that point right there when you make your multiples or your blur drawing or the stretch, whatever, swipe drawing.
So I don't know like any rules or anything like that for multiples. I just know you draw multiple things. So what is the convention that you were taught versus what is being shown here?
The thing is that it can, there really are no set rules. I've done swipe drawing, blur drawing, multiples. I've done it to where, let's say right here, and if I come in here, I've done it to where his hat goes, I use it as an anticipation on it.
Okay.
As he comes through, all in the same drawing. And then what they did here, you'll see it's an overshoot, the outline of the hat right there. And when I go to the next one, you'll see this edge go back in that way. Oop, totally wrong. No, sorry. I should have watched that clip. What it is, okay, so they use a real small swipe there. I've done it, let me see where that is. I've done it to where it does the overshoot and an anticipation. There's the antic, overshoot in one drawing. I've done it. And
okay.
Put his nose there, and then he comes in like that. The thing that I've realized is that there really are no rules. I've seen it done so many different ways. I've seen it done where they didn't put in multiples like this.
Mm-hmm.
They'll just put in one big shape for the nose.
Yeah.
And like that.
Chuck Jones would do a lot of that. Like, and where's that like really predominant? Was it the Dover Boys? You remember that cartoon?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I feel like that's the one that everybody points to whenever you get those. It's not so much multiples as it is smears.
Right. Let's keep going. Let's see. So I know he does a bunch of them here. So
yeah, there were a few.
They just have him freeze right there. That one's so different than the previous one. They put some lines right there and then some dry brush right there inside of it, but still kept it contained in between. Here's that one, which is right there. And then this edge lands right there. So they kept it all contained in there. It's very cool. There's just a whole lot of different ways. When I was originally taught this is what I was taught. You go from that original edge, and there they did exactly what I said before. They went out beyond it, so that kind of represents an antic. But when I was first learning it, you'd go from the original edge right there. Let's find where this is. I mean, there's the overshoot in the blur. and it would come right about there. And then what I realized is that there are no steadfast rules as far as doing it. What I did would work.
What exactly is that describing then? So you're saying it's all the motion all the way between the anticipation to the overshoot?
Yeah. Like when the earlier when I come back here, let me come back there. Okay, so here it is. Here's a good example. So this is the antic line and the overshoot all in one drawing.
Mm-hmm.
All in one drawing. When I get rid of this and we go by what this animator had done,
mm-hmm.
They just made a simple blur that is real close to this one, but it's still coming, the edge is still slightly slowing out from there, from this edge right there. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then it's slowing out there. And then over here does an overshoot of it there. And
so it snaps back.
Yeah, then it snaps back into that pose. So if we look at this, let me color this in just this big shape. Look at that, and you'll see how it goes past it, except for the top of the hat. That's why there's no rules. As long as it's visually working, that means it's working. I've seen it done in so many different variations. You know, in The Illusion of Life, when they show that scene where Pluto, and he's running, and they show all those dry brush lines like this, but they actually use dry brush on it. Like some animators say, "Oh, that's horrible. Don't ever use that. Those are terrible." They think it's too much. It's too confusing for the eye. It just matters what you like. When I worked on this TV show, Mighty B, I remember the director just wanted traces of the shapes, and they just dissipate like so.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So if you look at that stuff in slow motion, you're going to just see a whole variety of different techniques you can use.
And so, but you were saying the way that you were taught originally.
Originally, the way I was taught was I would go, for instance, on this one. I'd go from here to there. We'll just use this part of his head. Go from there into this one. Let me turn this on. I'd go, this would be the drawing that goes in between. I'd stay on that edge over to this edge right there, and that's where I'd put in the blur drawings.
Oh, okay.
So
I would be more conservative that way.
Exactly. And this is back in like 1982, I think it was, and it was just, it works. We can see this works. It will work. It was just the way that the teacher at the time, that was the way he did it, and he showed me that. And it really wasn't until, because I used to get Super 8 films, try to play them back and forth, and it was really hard to register the drawings. But it really wasn't until I worked in a studio.
But yeah, so as far as the multiples and the blur and stuff like that, that's trying to replicate a blur in film, right?
It, exactly. If you look at a picture, they wind up, but when they do the throw, that arm, when that arm comes through, it's really blurred. Here's the arm, and it comes down. There's the end point of the throw, and that's how they had learned it. They learned it from studying live action. And if you see a punch, like if you watch boxing in slow motion, that was the great thing when video came out, because you could go frame by frame with the videos, and you would look at it and you would see the face of a character when they got hit with the fist. It would be so distorted, it wouldn't even look human. There'd be the lip up there, up like so, and it would just be just real rubbery and have this plastic quality. And even in the cranium, and this is even today with the high speed cameras they have, and you look at it, even the cranium will have distortion in it, which you would think when they stop in that frame of that punch, when the character gets hit, you think that would automatically split their head open. Because when you look at that one still image, it's like, oh my God, man, how could the human brain take it? But it's just the distortion of movement.
Mm-hmm.
But that's how, when you see you look at the old Disney's animation from the 40s, a lot of stretch and squash, and that's what they when they discovered that, they went really wild with it. They just had a real blast with it, and it is very cool. But then when they got more sophisticated and they're doing films like Bambi and stuff, they knew they couldn't do that to try to tell that kind of story, but they still used those principles. But for cartoony stuff, this is the best. And there's so many ways you could do it. You could have this stretch out there and have it come out just like the swipe of Yosemite when he goes over there.
Yeah.
And it's just with the drag and everything. But
I think that's a good point too, where it is dependent on the story and the emotion that you're trying to get through, because the technique is it's so fun visually. I think it would be probably easy to start putting it in places just like from an art perspective, where it doesn't actually complement the story that's trying to be told.
Look, I always had a habit of putting in too many lines. I'd put in a bunch of lines like this, like that, and it always bugged me, but I didn't know why. But then when I read his book, he just said keep it minimal, and it works much better. Just
interesting, because I have that same problem, and I think I'm putting in too many lines.
So, dude, and this what works. That'll work. Just put in those lines, and it tells it. I think what it does, it communicates it much clearer, and it doesn't get like we were talking about before. Some animators don't like the dry brush, like that Pluto scene, because there was just too many dry brush lines in there, and it just made it just confusing. It just wasn't as appealing. Even though, and when you're doing this, like in that scene in The Illusion of Life of Pluto, they got so many of these lines for the next drawing that you do see it all over the place. And I would say now, looking back on it, at the time, it still works, but it probably would have been better to go with the Goldberg system, keeping it simple. But
I
it
wonder
all works.
At what point those things really got codified, so to speak, because I imagine that Pluto stuff was really really early on in the experimentation process. So just getting it out, done, playing with it that way, you think about it in terms of, just a single piece of art, not looking at it at a frame, to get that level of dry brush to realize like, oh, I need to pull it back a little bit, but you need to lay it down first, right?
Yeah, yeah, I agree. You do have to first put it down. I get the feeling, that that was sort of like a aha moment when that Pluto scene was done. Those uh, big dry brushes, and I get the feeling it was from there they figured out, how to edit it. I also think it's a matter of taste. Some it was like I was telling you with the Mighty Bee, he wanted trails of the whatever it was that was moving. Also, that when the characters go out, they the characters, I'm not real good at this, but they start off just going out, let's say like that, and then the next frame it starts to twirl, little twirl down there. Then the next, but they keep it again very minimal. They'll just keep it. They don't put a whole bunch in there. Then they'll put in twirls like that, but they'll just keep it a line drawing like that. I don't like that one much. But they'll just keep it a line drawing like that. And if you look at it frame by frame, that's all they do. And then eventually as it goes out, it just goes out that direction. And then eventually this gets pulled out and it goes out off screen like so. So here's 1, 2, let me make 2 a little clearer. Just starting to curl. 2, 3, 4, 5, and it just zips out. And it's the wind, illustrated wind.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it works really nice.